find the biannual UNV fully funding report and flyers on your tables. Please feel free to refer to these. You will also have these in your bag. Now, to start this session, please allow me to introduce the moderator of the session, Ms. Nicola Harrington, Deputy Executive Coordinator, Volunteer Mobilization and Program at UNV. Ms. Harrington took up her appointment with UNV in June 2016. She joined us from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in Paris, where she was the Deputy Director for its Development Center. Prior to joining OECD, Nicola was the UN Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in the Republic of Moldova, coordinating activities in development and human rights. I'd like to introduce all the panelists and request all of you to come on stage. Ms. Aysata Ba, UN Volunteer Communications Officer with OHCHR WARO. Mr. Nobuyuki Yasui, Kansai Gaikuin University, Japan. Ms. Janine Mistelli, Deputy Head of Section Swiss Expert Pool for Civilian Peacebuilding, Federal Department for Foreign Affairs, Switzerland. Mr. Kevin Hennessy, Executive Officer, Irish-Aid, Ireland, and Ms. Flora Chung Won Fan, CEO, Agency for Volunteer Service, Hong Kong, SAR. Please.
So thank you very much to all of you for being with us. This is actually, for me, one of the most interesting sessions. What motivates partners to really come in with UN volunteers to really ensure that we have the types of talent that we are able to benefit from as UN volunteers. The title of the session is about investing in talent. It's about the people who are able to benefit from an experience of being a UN volunteer, but it's also about strengthening the United Nations system, because UN volunteers play a crucial role in helping the UN improve its way of working, its ability to really make a difference for the Sustainable Development Goal agenda. So throughout the discussion, I hope very much that our participants here, but also you in the audience, will be able to reflect upon those two sets of objectives. One, a very personalized objective. What does it mean for that individual? What does it mean for their career path? What does it mean for their motivation? What does it mean for the skill sets that they can develop through their role as UN volunteers? But as important, for the institution of the United Nations, this is one extremely important way in which we have young people, people with different types of experience, broader sets of nationalities, really participating in the life and the work of the institution. So I'd really like us to be able to reflect on both of those angles. We're really very happy to have such a diverse panel. We have a panel of governments, we have a panel of universities, we have a panel of a volunteer agency. So we're looking really at very different perspectives in terms of how you use the fully funded programme of the UN volunteers, what motivates you to do that, and we'll have what does it mean for a fully funded volunteer, for you as an individual and for you as a professional moving forward. We'll take a first round of engagement and perhaps then throw it out to the floor. There are a number of you who are in the audience who have either been governments receiving fully funded volunteers, United Nations agencies who benefited from the participation of UN volunteers, other UN volunteers yourselves who you may want to further elaborate on your experiences after your inspiring talks yesterday. But let it be a very fluid discussion that we can really try to get the maximum out of the time that we have. I think we have a little over an hour if you still want to have lunch. I'm sure that you do, so we're standing between you and lunch. But I know with the speakers that we have, we'll be able to keep your interest. I'd like to start with Switzerland. Switzerland has been a long-standing partner of the programme. Very interesting to me to see actually that the Swiss government has supported the programme both from its development cooperation, but also from its peace-building, human security partners. What's your motivation? What has been your experience of the programme? Can you tell us, Janine?
Mm-hmm. Maybe I elaborate a little bit. So the Swiss government, I think as every government is thinking what are they going to do and why are they going to do and how they want to gain the target. So if we think we have geographic priorities, we have thematic priorities. These are, let's say, the overall goals we want to set. Then we have different instruments to get the target. So, and one of the instruments is to provide expertise to international organizations. And with this instrument, there are also different kind of stakeholders who profit from this providing of expertise to international organizations. So we have the organizations itself. One of the goals is to strengthen those organizations which whom we want to work with, to strengthen the programs, to strengthen projects, to strengthen initiatives. Then we have also the beneficiaries, and let's take that in a broader way to say beneficiaries. So we have the population, we have societies, civil societies, groups, and even the government in the country itself. And then we have also the UNVs. So the UNVs, they want to volunteer and they want to gain experience, life experience and professional experience. And I think in an ideal situation, all of the involved groups or parties achieved a common purpose. That would be ideal. That's what we are looking for. So I think that's the overall view I have. I hope I haven't forgotten any parties. And as we said, to provide expertise to international organization is one of the instrument of the foreign policy of Switzerland. We do this in providing experts, quite skilled experts, but also to provide volunteers, and our focus is on the youth program. We can see that the youth people, they are very motivated to work in the international cooperation to gain this experience, and then they can contribute to all of these goals I mentioned before. And one day they are getting professionals and they can contribute again, and that is one of the goals also. So we want to have well-skilled persons who are working in the international cooperation. And maybe we can speak about that a little bit later.
Thank you very much. I think you highlight very nicely actually this combination of an interest in the government in strengthening the United Nations system, an interest also in finding ways for Swiss nationals to be able to get exposure to the work of the international community and to the specific themes. And you pointed to a very important element of the programme, which is actually that governments or partners also can choose based on geography, thematic priorities in terms of where you would like to place the volunteers. Can you say anything a little bit about when they come home? Do you see a difference when the Swiss volunteers are coming back? Have you been able to track their experiences?
We track the experience, so we are in contact with the UN volunteers while the assignment. We see them also for a debriefing, and we keep contact with them. So we can follow their career, and Switzerland did a study about what they will do after their assignment, and we see that the majority of the former UN youth volunteers and the volunteers are still working in the international cooperation. That means in the UN, in NGOs, and also in the Swiss government. So the experience they gained in the field, which is a very important experience, they can take it with them in their career and bring it and value it for other organizations and with other job opportunities.
Thank you very much. And just to say that I think that's particularly relevant given Swiss prioritization of the youth program in particular, although not exclusively. I think you have also had some specialist volunteers in there. Perhaps if I may, I'd actually pass the word over to our professor, Professor Yasui. I think that the Kwansei Gukin University plays a very important role of having been a long-standing partner for the university volunteer program. And you have an interesting role not only on behalf of your own university, but also coordinating others to really participate in the fully funded program. It's been a long-standing 16 years of collaboration, so one of the first really in terms of being able to develop our partnership together. Perhaps you could say a little bit about what have been the motivations for your own university and for other universities in coming into the program. And then again, this in question about how you see it affects the individual students when they come back.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I need to say about the modality of the new partnership with UNVOI, Japanese government, and universities. This is a good practice for everybody as a Trinity model. Please see that figure. Yes. Look at that. Our program is under the operation of this, the Trinity model, what we call KGU model. KGU means that Kwansei Gakuin University. The three entities, one, government Japan provide UNVOI with a fund for deployment of UNYV volunteers. In fact, most of the cost of deployment would be covered by the Japanese government. Meanwhile, that the UNVOI identify the specific post for the country office. Then university consortium, including our university, identify that the suitable candidate for dispatching volunteers. So three entities combine and collaborating each other and sending our student to that country office in the field. This is very prominent and variable practice. University itself cannot send and operate this kind of program. That's why that first of all, we would like to show our practice for all of you. Then actually the 17th student annually dispatched to that country office in the Africa and Asia and so on for 5 months. Just aligned to that one semester, and also that the credit will be given to each student. So that feed it into that academic program. This is also the point. Then after having an experience in the field, the student actually changed due to that seeing the fact and real world in Africa or Asia or some other countries. That's why that we are thinking the impact for students is quite huge. This is a comment and what I would like to say. Thank you, Indy.
Thank you very much. I think you've raised many important issues. One, this important collaboration between governments and universities and what that can really bring. The practical questions about how does one field volunteers without such an infrastructure, and how the infrastructure of the UN volunteers can help you be able to field these volunteers. It's wonderful to hear the huge impact that you feel that a period as a university volunteer has been able to give to the people that you have sent. So I think you've talked on the institutional level and also on the very human level in terms of what makes sense. I know that there are a number of universities, at least 2 more universities, that are looking at joining the broader network that you're currently coordinating. Can you say something a little bit about that coordination role that you have played with universities and what you believe motivates the universities to participate in that network?
Yep. Actually, that now university composed for that university consortium, and we are the focal point at that consortium. Then now some universities are willing to join that consortium, but still we need to make that operate smoothly, and also that we will evaluate the effect of dispatching the volunteer. Even that security matters. In the pre-dispatch training, we provide the risk management and project cycle management and so on. We spend almost 2 weeks before dispatching the volunteer. That's why that, of course, several universities have a willingness, but also that competent or capacity of that university would be seriously considered. Based on that situation, maybe in the future, number of universities will be expanded. That's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, it begins and ends with the person. So we felt it was very important to listen to the experience of one of our fully funded volunteers. I think this is an interesting case in point that you're supported, Aissata, you're supported by the government of Luxembourg, although actually you have dual French and Malian nationality. And perhaps just to highlight that a number of governments have chosen to support nationalities, volunteers from nationalities other than their own, in many cases as part of the spirit of South-South cooperation. And we will hear perhaps from some of those governments from the floor in terms of what motivates you to do that. But perhaps asking you gave us yesterday a very compelling view of the work that you do. In fact, actually, those of us who are in UN Volunteers have had 2 chances to hear different aspects of Aissata's work. But today, what I asked her to really reflect upon is actually, what does that fully funded opportunity really mean as a package? Because often we're looking at the recruitment stage, we're looking at the placement stage, but it's also about the training that you get, the support that you get as part and parcel of the overall experience. So please, if you could reflect a little bit upon that for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all. I'm happy today I have notes. So first I wanted to say that it's really not about making money, but about everyone making it. And that's important because we love stories among volunteers. So I would like to tell this quick story that when finishing my thesis for my PhD, I left the little job I had to make it. And I had to clean the only jacket I had for the big day. So when I went to the cleaning lady, she asked, I'm an immigrant. And I do not really understand why you immigrant kids, I mean, when we come to have a situation, we want our kids to make it. And now you all come with those stories of wanting to volunteer and you don't make money. I don't get it. And so then I was a little puzzled. I said, okay, don't get distracted, just do your dissertation. And so then I was volunteering in an interfaith movement because that was the question of my thesis, interfaith cooperation. And so back to my UN volunteering with the UN, I had the reply actually because when I went to Senegal at OHCHR for human rights, I really understood that it wasn't about the money, but really about everyone making it, everyone having the opportunity that I had. Because when you volunteer, you just don't focus on your own comfort, but on everyone getting that same good quality of life that you want and that even that lady wanted for her kids.
So, why? Because volunteerism makes a strong, focused, and enthusiastic mind that can lead you anywhere. Because you are creative even when you have no means. Because you are focused on your goal and you'll do everything to get there. By that, I mean, when I was in Senegal, sometimes we don't have a lot of means, but we would say, okay, what do we want? We want kids to get human rights. And so then we would gather all kids from schools, and we looked for partnerships with TV programs who were doing kind of special TV shows for the youth. And then we told them, okay, now you're doing your videos on what human rights mean to you, and you will display it on television so that not only the kids would be trained on using cameras, on how to tell stories, about human rights, but they would also raise the entire public's awareness. So all that almost without money, because then we would collaborate with television. We would tell them, please do it for free, and then you will be part of our programs, and your logos will be on our programs. So creativity, you can develop it when you have no means. But then, of course, you need means to go bigger and to do more, and the means are what we get through the funding through Luxembourg. And my special situation is peculiar because I was born in Mali, I was raised in France, and I was recruited through Luxembourg with Luxembourg funding and coordinated by the UN volunteers who are in Bonn. So look how many countries cooperate here. And again, it's cooperation. It's what I did for my thesis. So every dot is connected here through cooperation. And really, when you're in the field and you're working, knowing that all those countries collaborated for you to make it and for other youth to make it, you say, okay, the solution is there. So it's really not about making the money, but about everything, everyone doing it. Thank you.
Thank you for that very strong message of collaboration and cooperation, which I think has characterised the work of all of our volunteers. Thank you very much. Madam Chung Wan Fan, it will be very interesting to hear from you. The Hong Kong Agency for Volunteer Service has got a very long history with us. Again, I think you're playing the role of coordinating amongst a number of institutions in terms of the university volunteer programme. What do you feel is unique about the programme? What do you feel it adds to other programmes that you have, other channels that you have for placing your volunteers? Please.
Yeah, thank you. It is my great pleasure here to share the model and experience of the University Volunteer Program in Hong Kong. You asked why we initiate such a program in partnership with UNV. In fact, AVS has a long-standing partnership with UNV since 1998. In 2013, we signed a new MOU with UNV with a focus on youth volunteering. Because in recent years, our organization has a strategic focus on youth development. We think volunteering is a very good opportunity to develop young people. And this university volunteer program not only enable our young people to contribute to global peace and sustainable development, but also help youth build their capacity, and I think broaden their perspective, and also I think give them an experience of cultural diversity. So that's why we start such a program. And the model in Hong Kong is quite different from others because we adopt a multi-stakeholder collaboration. ABS serves as a lead organization to manage the program with funding from the government. It is fully funded by the government, and we collaborate with two other NGOs, the Peace and Development Foundation and the Hong Kong Volunteers Association together. And in terms of the sources of volunteers, we invite the collaboration of 8 public-funded universities in Hong Kong. Each university at most can nominate 5 candidates, 5 undergraduates for the program, for our selection. and then for the final decision of UNV. So we formed a steering committee composed of the 3 NGOs, and we also established a selection panel to do face-to-face interview with the candidates before we make recommendation to the UNV. So this is our model. And in terms of the choice of serving countries, the UNV helped to identify the countries and DOAs, the assignments for us. But the steering committee will endorse or to consider the choice of the serving organization. For the first 2 years, we focus on the countries in Southeast Asia because we think it is of shorter distance to Hong Kong, and students and volunteers will find it easy to adapt to the environment. And so we choose 5 countries in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, East Timor, such that. And to help the volunteers to adapt and to have a sense of mutual support and sharing, all the assignments will be in pairs or in groups. So each country will provide more than 1 assignment so that volunteers can go in pairs or in groups. According to our major stakeholders, security is their major concern. So they give us such advice. And for the departure training, AVS designed a 5-day departure training. And the training will be co-facilitated by UNV and AVS together. UNV will focus on the part of UN system, SDGs, and AVS will focus on the essence of volunteerism, the practice of good volunteer, and also stress management, organizational and psychology, such things. So it's a joint effort of UNV and AVS to provide a 5-day departure training. And the volunteers come back from the assignments will serve as a buddy to the new batch of volunteers, so they can help them to get more information and more advice, more insights. And apart from service, we also make advantage of this program to promote volunteerism because this is our mission. So we involve a lot of media attention. For example, before the volunteers depart for service, we'll call a media meeting so that let the media meet our volunteers after their training. And then in the coming IVD on 5th of December, we'll present recognition and celebrate their achievements with the volunteers. So we have invited a representative of Mr. Dictus to come to Hong Kong to present the recognition with our chairman. And their stories will be published in the newspapers and then to share with the public. We don't only publicize the stories in the universities, but we also want the public know we have such a very valuable program for our university students.
Thank you very much, Flora. There are many elements that you raise which have come up in different ways, but perhaps the way you articulate the multi-stakeholder nature of the cooperation, its government, its NGOs, its universities coming together. I think how you situate the programme as well is making the broader case for volunteerism. So it's not only the action of the volunteer going out, but also what happens afterwards in terms of helping them be able to be a voice for volunteerism within your country. You raise an important point, I think, in terms of security, and just to reassure all of the partners that UN volunteers going out into the countries form part and parcel of the security system of the United Nations, and as such are treated in exactly the same way as any staff member. And I think it's extremely important in today's world in particular that that assurance is there. The first thing that we do, and for example, Haiti floods happen, the first thing that we do is check our people are okay, and then we move on to what can we do to help the country through volunteerism. And lastly, I think an important point that you raised in terms of how the selection is done, that the selection, the role that we play in that will vary according to what the partner itself chooses to do. So we come in at different stages according to the flexibility needed by the partner. Kevin, please give us the little bit the observations of the experience from the Irish government. Again, you've been very much involved in the programme, not yourself personally, but your government since 1995. So a very long-standing member of the fully funded programme. You have many different options in channels for sending Irish volunteers. What makes it particular about the UN volunteer programme and cooperation with the Irish government? Perhaps you could share your experience.
Thank you, Nicola. Volunteering overseas is a time-honoured tradition in Ireland that has left a rich legacy both in Ireland and throughout the developing world, particularly in Africa. It is one of which Ireland can be rightly proud. Ireland has a long history of cooperation with UNV, which commenced in the early 1970s, both funding volunteers and also contributing to the UNV's Special Voluntary Fund. Ireland's support to UNV in recent years has focused on sponsoring the development of UN youth volunteers to assignments with UN agencies, primarily in Irish Aid's partner countries and priority sectors. Irish Aid's key partner countries are for the most part concentrated in Sub-Saharan Africa. Irish Aid's commitment to volunteerism for development was reaffirmed in the Irish Aid Volunteering Initiative launched in 2013, which stated that Irish Aid would strengthen its engagement with UNV and would sponsor between 10 and 14 youth volunteers per year. Ireland joined the UN Youth Volunteer Programme in 2006, and up to 2016, 144 volunteers had been assigned to UN agencies through Irish Aid funding. In 2017, it is expected this figure will rise to 156 youth volunteers. These volunteers are mainly placed in Irish Aid programme countries. Currently, 12 UN volunteers are placed with UN agencies in Zambia, Malawi, Thailand, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Vietnam, Uganda, and Mozambique in the areas of basic education, development coordination, human rights, youth affairs, empowerment and participation, nutrition, and communication and visibility. 12 UN youth volunteers are expected to be deployed in 2017. Our funding to UNV has enabled youth volunteers to enter the UN system and gain essential experience in development and volunteering on the international stage. High-quality volunteer programs provide an opportunity for skill sharing and mutual learning. In turn, these contribute to sustainable development and reinforce solidarity between youth volunteers and developing countries. Volunteering can be a life-changing experience for both the youth volunteer and the host community. Youth volunteers funded by Irish Aid who have completed their assignments have gained considerable experience and expertise, and most have continued working in development, many with UN agencies and some with our own Department of Foreign Affairs. Some of our youth volunteers have also gone on to become UN specialist volunteers. Irish Aid has sponsored over 22 UN specialist volunteers in the past 6 years.
Thank you very much. You raised some very important points in terms of actually the skills development of the individual and also the aspects of mutual learning for the volunteer, but also learning for those with whom the volunteer is interacting with, and highlighting a number of the sectors, a very broad range of sectors with which UN volunteers are working, which include support to the coordination of the UN system, as well as a series of thematic areas of priority to the government. Bearing in mind that you do support both specialist and youth volunteers, could you say a little bit about how the two elements interplay, why you would use one rather than the other, whether they complement each other?
Yes, our youth volunteers are generally placed for 1 year abroad, and our specialists are usually placed for 2 years. By focusing on youth, it enables Irish Aid to place more volunteers with UN agencies on a regular basis. For the youth volunteers, the programme is a great opportunity for them, as they have little or no experience. In any career, the first steps on the ladder are the hardest. It gives them a chance to begin a career in development. Specialist volunteers are of particular benefit to UN agencies as they are more seasoned professionals with at least 3 years' experience. Many of our youth volunteers have gone on to become specialist volunteers. Their time as a youth volunteer gives them a good understanding of the UN system and its workings. It also gives them the experience of living and working in a developing country for a year, and the cultural experience that entails. This week, candidates were shortlisted for a specialist fully funded programme by Irish Aid, and one of the shortlisted candidates was a youth volunteer from 2 years ago. So that shows the progress and the continuation from the youth volunteers to specialist volunteers.
Thank you for that interesting idea of the sequencing. No? And perhaps just to reiterate that the youth volunteers are usually participating for 1 to 2 years, specialists for up to 4 years, and university volunteers usually for a period of 6 months. With that, with I think what has been a very rich set of perspectives on the fully funded programme, I'd like to open the floor to questions, comments that people would like to give to the panellists. And please, if you are raising a question, if you could perhaps indicate to whom you're directing that question. I'm also very mindful that we have a number of you in the audience who have experience of a fully funded programme. I'd really encourage you perhaps to share your experience. It might be because you're a UN agency that has actually benefited from fully funded UN volunteers. It can be a fully funded volunteer themselves who's currently volunteering to open the floor, which will be fantastic, and also from governments where you have benefited from fully funded volunteers coming to you and to your government. And I think maybe Mr. Coulibaly, you might want to come in on that. Perhaps if I may, there's over the table here, there's 2 people who would like to come in. I think we have and perhaps if you could introduce yourself when you get the microphone.
Thank you. I'm Henrietta de Beer, UNDP Office of Human Resources. And at the outset, Nicola, I would like to say that I don't think UNDP would be able to deliver on its mandate. And in particular, as we embark on our promise on the SDGs, I don't think we would be able to do it without volunteerism. So we see our partnership with UNV strengthening even further as we go and embark on the 2030 agenda. As the figures show, UNDP is the biggest recipient of the fully funded UNVs, and it has been a success story. If I can speak from a human resource perspective, our main offer to program is trying to get the right person at the right place at the right time. And with the fully funded UNVs, I think that's the win that we get, is that we're able to get the kind of expertise and commitment that we saw in the testimonies yesterday, from the areas of peace building to operations to immediate crisis response in areas such as Ebola and what we will see coming through for Haiti. So for UNDP, it has been really a success story. We are going to come back again to you, and then you can expect us to be an even bigger recipient and client going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henrietta. And I think you raised very important points in terms of the expectations on the United Nations system to deliver on the 2030 agenda are very, very high. And how can we really expand the role of UN volunteers within that, I think, is a point which is very well taken. I think you also capture very nicely how the fully funded programme really is a win-win-win. It's a win for the host agency, it's a win for the country, it's a win for the individual, and how we can really find those assignments that make best maximisation of that win-win-win potential and possibility. Thank you very much. Please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Anja Pauls from the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. I'm pleased to be here, and we are proud to be again co-host of this event in Bonn here. As you may assume, we look back to a very comprehensive and long-standing history of cooperation with UNV, and providing fully funded volunteers is one part of this close cooperation, apart from providing some kind of core contribution for the special voluntary fund, and apart from special cost-sharing agreement where we specify our interest in direct project cooperation. So you've asked, Nicola, what motivates governments to invest in fully funded volunteers? And there are several answers for us in the German development cooperation. First of all, our humble interest to strengthen UNV as an organization, as our neighbors in Bonn, also as our partners in promoting the city of Bonn and as a UN hub. And secondly, our interest in strengthening civil society in our partner countries. So we also try to provide that those fully funded volunteers are deployed in our partner countries. But then thirdly, and this is also very important for us, we would like to use those volunteers, if I may say use, as an instrument to reach our own goals in development cooperation. For example, we've been supporting the whole discussion and process on the reform of the UN development system for several years. And we are especially interested in intensifying, improving collaboration on the ground between UN agencies. So we provide now fully funded volunteers for the Office of the Resident Coordinators in program countries. So this is an important motivation. And another motivation is that Germany maintains, of course, very close relationships with UNDP, and as we are a member country, and also with UN Women and UNFPA, and we try to somehow provide cross-fertilization through the deployment of UN volunteers. For example, we collaborate with UN Women, and when we fund volunteers for gender-responsive peace building, for example. So this is a very good opportunity for us to strengthen interagency collaboration. So I'd be happy to answer also any kind of question regarding our experience with the fully funded volunteers. And I forgot to say that our volunteers are about 60% from Germany and 40% from southern countries, and we're happy to strengthen South-South cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, thank you for a very comprehensive explanation of the series of motivations that you have. And it's interesting that the motivations stretch from geopolitical almost in terms of the interest of having a UN system playing a certain role in certain fields, through to some very practical aspects of the coordination between UN agencies and how a UN volunteer assignment can help that, through to the individual and what the individual learns and benefits from the experience, into the role that UNV and the UN family play as part and parcel of the UN presence in Bonn. So very varied. And we particularly appreciate the support that Germany gives to the South-South cooperation. And we do feel it's added enormously to our cooperation also with the German government, that we have that angle of the fully funded programme in addition to the excellent German volunteers that we benefit from. Thank you. Perhaps just moving this way, and then we will end up in this table, but perhaps if I may, we have Mr. Koulibaly, would you like to come in? Perhaps I'll just move it's just here.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll come to this table here. Thank you.
Okay. Merci. Bonjour à toute l'assistance. Moi, je voudrais intervenir pour témoigner sur 3 aspects s'agissant de la contribution des volontaires full funding. Je dois attendre.
Do you need...
Une minute. Oui, une minute. Oui.
ISATA doesn't need. You probably don't need either, no?
Désolé, je ne parle pas anglais. Et la langue officielle chez moi, c'est le français.
Non, c'est bien. Oui. Juste un petit moment et... Ok, on est préparé. Okay. Merci.
On est prêt. Je disais que je voudrais intervenir pour témoigner sur 3 points quant à la contribution inestimable des volontaires, surtout des volontaires full funding, volontaires, comment on appelle, entièrement financés, ou bien sur financement intégral. Au moment même où je vous parle, nous avons au Mali, nous avons sous la main un projet fin prêt qui n'attend que seulement sa mise en œuvre dans les jours à venir. Hier seulement, on discutait les contours pratiques de sa mise en œuvre. Et ce projet, nous l'avons eu grâce à la contribution d'une d'une venue full funding sur financement intégral qui, de par son engagement et son agressivité, entre guillemets, positive, a sillonné des Cailles jusqu'à Gao, 8 régions du Mali, rencontrant les associations de jeunes pour concocter et monter un projet de renforcement des capacités des jeunes maliens quant à la résilience par rapport au conflit et à la consolidation de la paix. Ce projet qui a eu l'assentement de notre ministre qui était là aujourd'hui, qui a témoigné. Et initialement, la contribution du Mali dans ce projet, c'était $200 000. Mais tellement que le travail était bien fait, que le gouvernement a tellement apprécié qu'on a pratiquement doublé la contribution, la participation du Mali à $500 000 et avec la participation de 200 volontaires maliens qui vont accompagner ce projet. Et ça, nous le devons vraiment grâce à la dynamique et à l'engagement volontaire de la venue full funding belge qui se trouve présentement au Mali, avec laquelle nous continuons de travailler. Et je dois aussi témoigner un autre cas, parce que j'étais chargé des programmes des volontaires des Nations Unies en Mauritanie. Et j'ai eu la chance de mobiliser un volontaire full funding français du nom d'Alain, qui en 2012, à la faveur de la crise qui a secoué le Mali, il y a eu un afflux de réfugiés maliens au niveau du camp de Beira, qui abrite encore les réfugiés maliens. Et Alain, il était volontaire full funding qui appuyait le programme l'unité environnement. Et face à cette situation et à la dégradation de la pluviométrie en Mauritanie à l'époque, il fallait intervenir avec un projet de relèvement rapide, ce que la coordination du PNID a mis en place avec l'assistance du VENI full funding. Et je dis ça parce que ce VENI a fait notre fierté. Et immédiatement, ce programme de relèvement rapide, c'était pour 6 mois. À la fin de ces 6 mois, le VENI il a eu l'initiative de monter un vrai document de projet de résilience et de réhabilitation des zones qui accueillent les volontaires maliens, la zone de Nema, et qui a eu l'assentiment de plusieurs partenaires, et c'est lui-même qui a mobilisé les financements auprès de la coopération française et auprès de l'Union européenne. Et jusqu'à présent, ce projet est en cours. Et malheureusement, le VENI, il avait 2 ans sur financement, et compte tenu de ses performances, l'Amérique du Sud nous a chippé à l'époque, et il se trouve présentement en Amérique du Sud. Et c'est le cas aussi d'un volontaire belge que je peux citer ici en 2005, lorsqu'on faisait la réinsertion des ex-combattants du Niger en 2005. On avait un VENI full funding du nom de Samuel qui assistait le chargé de programme gouvernance. Malheureusement, ce dernier est décédé avant même qu'on commence la mise en œuvre du projet. Mais le PNUD, à l'époque, je crois, un expert du PNUD qui a aussi assuré la coordination de l'Afrique pour les VENI, M. Michael Falavigna, lui a confié le portefeuille de gouvernance. Et il supervisait le projet au PNUD, et nous étions sur le terrain. Et grâce à son dynamisme, il a pu mobiliser toutes les ressources qui étaient dues auprès de la France et auprès des États-Unis d'Amérique et auprès de l'USAID. Et mieux encore, au cours du projet, il m'a approché pour concocter une activité connexe qu'on a appelée Record Femmes, appui au renforcement des capacités des femmes ex-combattantes. Et sur ce document de projet, lui-même, il a mobilisé auprès de la coopération belge 400 000 € pour appuyer le projet. Donc, c'est pour témoigner l'apport inestimable que les VENI full funding apportent. Et moi qui vous parle aujourd'hui, je suis le directeur du Centre national pour la promotion du volontariat. Je serais très heureux d'accueillir des volontaires full funding si nous avons l'opportunité de l'avoir. Et je m'adresse ici aux bailleurs, aux donateurs de VENI full funding. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup pour cette intervention. Je pense que vous avez donné beaucoup d'exemples beaucoup d'exemples de la participation des volontaires dans différents pays et comme ça vous a aidé aussi comme l'ONU, comme du point de vue d'un gouvernement. Donc je veux remercier énormément ce témoignage. Merci beaucoup. Je pense que, Monsieur le Ministre, c'est un bon moment pour vous de nous donner peut-être une autre réflexion. Je sais que vous avez donné une réflexion très riche ce matin, mais peut-être vous pourrez réfléchir sur le Fully Funded Programme en soi.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. Je pense que Sékou Oumar a déjà dit pas mal de choses. Je sais que en tant que ministre, j'ai travaillé avec une Fully Funded sur la question du développement. I can switch to English if it's easier.
Je pense que c'est bien. Je pense que les gens
Okay,
ont besoin
let me
de-
just switch to English. I think that's easier. So to add to what Sékou Oumar Coulibaly has just said, I would like to emphasize the importance of the work of UNV fully funded volunteers because, you know, we are in a situation where today most of our resources, it's not simply Mali, it's also, I think, Niger, it's Chad, it's Nigeria. We're using a lot of resources on security issues today. So governments lack resources to have all the human resources that they need. And I think fully funded volunteers can be very helpful. The one that we had in Mali, Iran, who used to be with, who is still, I think, with UNESCO, has helped us to develop the national national youth program. And I think that's a fantastic job that she did. She's been very dynamic. She's followed up all the steps to get the document, and the document has been approved, and I think it's really thanks to her dynamism. I mean, we could have done it, but it would have taken ages. So I think for us, it's absolutely critical to have UNV fully funded volunteers. It can help us in our development efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that testimony to the importance as a minister of the role that fully funded volunteers can play. Please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Tiago. You might remember I have shared my story yesterday, but there was a part of it I didn't share. And as I said, that I also started as a fully funded volunteer. So I'd also like to compliment a bit on what my colleagues said on the experience of being the fully funded. No? In my case, was a bit particular. It was more of a special occasion from the government of my country. I believe most of you might be familiar with Sergio Vieira de Mello, no? The Brazilian officer that was killed in Iraq in 2003 in the Hotel Canal attack. And actually, in the 10th anniversary of his death, there was a tribute to him by the government of Brazil. And part of that tribute was a scholarship, a Sergio Vieira de Mello scholarship that was aimed at supporting young Brazilians fresh from university to start off in international humanitarian careers in the UN. So that's the background of the assignment. That when I saw it, I was really encouraged. I was really motivated. But that's about all I had at the time. I certainly didn't have still the specialization or the skills or the background on that subject specifically. But that was not the point. The point was really to support the young Brazilians to start off on that. So I started as a youth volunteer. It was actually the first batch of the international youth volunteers in 2014. We're about 100, 120, I'm not sure. And we all went to different countries. There was 2 Brazilians. They were part of that team at the time, fully funded. And for me, it was really an incredible experience because actually it was mostly through the experience as a fully funded youth volunteer that I was actually able to get the other opportunities I was getting afterwards, which I shared with you yesterday. Actually, part of the package for the youth volunteers is an educational grant, which is actually quite generous in terms of allowing us to do a specialization program or in my case, I did a specialization, and then I went on to do a postgraduate with the grant that was given by the UNV in the area that I was working on. So that was critical for me to actually get my renewal as a specialist in the second year of the UNV. And then also my host agency would be offering soft skills trainings and so on. So there's a lot of capacity building throughout my first and my second years in assignment, which was very much attached to my position as a fully funded youth UNV. And then from then on, I was, as I shared yesterday, also getting the opportunity to start off under entry-level professional contracting minds host agency. So this is part of the story that I also like to share that I think has a lot to do with all that everybody's emphasizing here on the role and how important this fully funded volunteers can be, but just a first-hand experience I think would help you to illustrate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you raised the key point in terms of it's not just the job, it's also about the capacity building that goes on through formal training, and the formal training being partly what the agency itself, as the host of the volunteer, commits to giving, but also the training allowance which each of the volunteers has that they can use for training in their areas of specialism to develop their career paths. And what's very nice, I think, about your story is that you have been able to go from volunteer into an assignment with the United Nations more permanently. That's excellent. I think there was another comment or question here, please. OHCHR.
Thank you. I'll be short and repetitive. In fact, this is just a thank you. First of all, I'm very proud to see one of ours on the podium. 15 years ago, like her, I was a fully funded UN volunteer, which meant that my government helped me get out of that vicious circle of many young people can't get a job because you don't have experience, can't get experience because you don't have a job. But I think the biggest lesson I learned being a UN volunteer was humility. I left with the arrogance of youth and had a big reality check. 15 years later, I'm on the other side. OHCHR is lucky enough to receive about 20 fully funded volunteers. I think many of our donor countries are in the room. Human rights is a growing field for good reasons, for very bad reasons. We can barely keep up with our mandates. The money is certainly not keeping up with our mandates. And I would love to say that the fully funded volunteers are a bonus. They are not. They're part of our core staffing, and there is many things we couldn't do without them. So to all our donor countries in the room, thank you.
I think it's a very wonderful combination of a personal testimony and also an institutional testimony. And thank you both to UNDP and to OHCHR, both for being great hosts for our volunteers, where you really, I think, make the most of the skills that they have, but also for your affirmation in terms of the centrality that the fully funded programme has played in terms of being able to boost and sustain the work of both agencies. Thank you. I think there was a comment here. Perhaps that will be the last, unless there's a burning one, and I will perhaps then wrap up to make sure that we stay on time.
Thank you very much. Maybe I'll move so the whole panel can see me. My name is Gert Seville Danielson. I'm a portfolio manager with Latin America and the Caribbean in this beautiful organization called UNV. And I wanted just to emphasize what Tiago said as well, that we are actually also trying, and hopefully this can be also an encouragement to the donor and to the donor partners here, as well as agencies. We're also really looking at working with the fully funded team to go towards the sort of middle-income countries and higher-income countries in our region, and I think also across the world, so we can also get the Brazils, the Colombias, the Mexicos into fully funded schemes as well. And I think even the cost sharing could be an interesting one. We've heard from Germany, who actually also supports the South-South component. I think that's really, really important, and we're very grateful for that. And other countries are doing the same. So I think it's also something we can keep in mind in these dialogues, both as governments and as agencies, that we can also look at, you know, sort of a 50-50 between, say, Mexico and Spain, to make an example, Ana Beatriz, and go that way as well. So I just want you to know and reassure you that we are also working with these emerging donors, and maybe you can keep that in mind as well as you have dialogues also with your counterparts and colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gert. I think perhaps if we could put up the slide while we maybe take the last comment, last question.
Yeah, so just a few words. I'll be very quick. First of all, I really like to thank UNV for the partnership over the years in the name of the Luxembourg government. I also like to say thank you to everybody who was here during the 2 days. I've had some great and inspiring discussions. But most importantly, I would like to say thanks to Aissata for her work and commitment. She's been great, and as Luxembourg, we are really proud to have funded her. And again, well done. Ms. Harrington, you mentioned before you would like to know why some countries actually fund non-nationals. I would like to second the comments of my German colleagues, because I think Germany and Luxembourg are the two only countries so far who are doing this. So I think there's room for improvement. Of course, there are geopolitical interests, and also Luxembourg would like to improve the South-South cooperation. But I think most importantly is to create, as it was said before, a win-win-win situation, and basically create global citizens, people who see opportunities and embrace challenges. So Luxembourg wants to promote this, and nationality doesn't really matter. Maybe you're aware we have 46% of non-nationals living in Luxembourg, so maybe that's in our DNA, let's say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed to that testimony, and I think it's kind of a very nice way, in a sense, to kind of bring the session to a close in terms of this. The fully funded program is about an expression of that global citizenship becoming a reality. I think all of you have kind of highlighted that it's as much about the people as it is about the institution. And I'd just perhaps like to give you a couple of statistics that we have from a survey that we have recently done, going back quite a long period of time, over people who've participated in the fully funded program in the last decade. It wasn't easy to track everybody down, but certainly part of our willingness is to try to build that alumni network, because it's incredibly powerful for us as an institution. But we wanted to just highlight two elements which seem to be important from the point of view of those of you as governments who have an interest in what happens next to these people and where do they go. Over a quarter stay in the UN system, which I think is a very important and quite significant contribution to the creating that next generation of people who can really come through the professional ranks of the UN system. Very many of them, 3/4 at least, stay in development cooperation, so they stay in the area of development. So again, I think it's actually about nurturing a resource that really goes in that direction of actually building the cadres for institutions to be able to use into the future. And we have seen a number of our fully funded volunteers then appearing as the minister who's sitting on our board. So it's very nice for us to see that, because it really is the full cycle of the capacity building that the UN Volunteers Programme is about. What's as important is how satisfied people are with the experience, and we have very high levels of satisfaction of the volunteers in terms of what the experience has meant for them. That is very much about how they are looked after along the way, how they are selected hand in hand with you, how they benefit from training. Both we talked this morning about the training that they get in many cases before they go out, for which many thanks. I think that's an extremely important contribution, but also the training and the capacity building that they get both on site and informal training as volunteers. We're really delighted to count on so many partners. We hope that that number of partners can amplify and expand over time. Certainly, a number of our partners from the South-South cooperation have really been working with us in terms of expanding the youth modality in particular. And I think I can say for all of the speakers that you will be happy to answer questions that people might have, perhaps over the lunch break, in terms of being able to see more about the why you did it, what it meant, and particularly what it's meant for the people coming back. But I think the satisfaction rate that you see there, 86% satisfied with the volunteer experience, is the single most important element for us. So thank you to all of the speakers, thank you to the audience for having borne with us through many different testimonies, and thank you for those who contributed to giving your experiences. Thanks a lot to all of you.